Hey guys, it is Adam with sorry. Hey guys, it is Adam with Larping Live, and I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to another installment where today I'm going to be speaking with Amanda Lee Harvey, who is an incredible LARPer and someone that we actually met fairly recently in the past couple of years. However, just wanted to kind of go through everything real quick. First of all, thanks for being here and checking us out. Again, LARPing Live is kind of here through LFG Nexus. LFG Nexus is a social media platform for gamers, but what we're here trying to do is trying to share different stories and give people a better idea of kind of LARPing, kind of how things go, a little bit more of the stories, why people get interested, why it's so addicting and so much fun. And again, we're excited to bring another person on to kind of have them share their experiences and how they got involved and why it was fun for them and that sort of thing. So I am very happy and proud to introduce Amanda Lee Harvey. And let me just pay the bills, and then we will get started with her.
People everywhere are discovering how 5G can change their lives. But Apartments.com has changed millions of renters' lives by helping them get into new homes. So we already knew all about the power of 5G. We've had it in every town and city for years. And also 6G, and 4C, and 2R, and 7L. What else would you expect from the site with the most listings anywhere? Apartments.com, the most popular place to find a place. Hello?
Amanda, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's a pleasure to bring you onto the show. I just wanted to kind of take a minute, and so we actually met playing some of the Dragon Isles events here in Atlanta through Nero. And I got to tell you, I've been playing for a real long time. I mean, we're probably getting on about 26 years of actual play, and you were one of the most competent people, especially when it came to like verbals and just being in the know. And that was one of the things that always stuck out to me. I like to consider myself a good player. And so that was one of the things that helped really set you apart. Even in the 2 or 3 events over there, like I just noticed it quick. But anyway, I'm super glad you're here. And, just kind of tell me a little bit more of how you got into LARPing.
Oh man. All right. So I'm a writer. I worked for a couple of publications. So I worked for metalmachine.com and gamezone.com, and a lot of working in the comic book and video game industry requires you to be at conventions. And I happened to have been selling comic books at Anime Boston right when I moved to Boston. So I didn't really know that many people. And I don't know anything about anime. It's not my forte. It's not my thing really. So I buddied up with the girls who were in the booth next to me. And I was like, hey, can you tell me who these people are cosplayed as? Because I need to take pictures and post it up to our social media. And we became friends really quick. We had a awesome time. So there were lulls in business, and we would get to talking, and we would talk about the nerding community and different types of things in the nerding community. And I was like, man, I don't really know much about bronies, and I'd love to learn more about a lot of different things, but LARPing is really something I could get behind because you're outside, there's social interaction, there's physical combat. I've always thought it was really cool, but I didn't know anything about it. And one of the girls, Alex, who has become one of my really good friends, was like, I LARP in New England. And I kind of poked her for 6 months after that. I was like, take me with you, take me with you, take me with you, take me with you. She is an incredible seamstress and ended up making my first costume and bringing me to my first event, which was Nero Karoth, which runs out of Orange, Connecticut. Well, was formerly Nero Karoth, but they run out of Orange, Connecticut, and I fell in love the first weekend that I was there. I was like, this is amazing.
That's awesome. So, about how long ago was that, if you don't mind me asking?
I think my 6-year anniversary in LARPing is coming up this April.
Awesome. Very cool. So one of the things here with this thing that I've been doing is most of the people are here local to Atlanta. You know, Atlanta is really big for LARPing, but of course, LARPing in the United States really kind of started up in Boston and kind of up in that northeastern area. But you know, can you know, how's the LARPing kind of area or market up there? Is it a lot different than what you saw when you were down here?
Oh, it's crazy. There's so many games in New England. There is a couple who is really big in the LARPing community up here, and they run a shared Google Calendar called LARP Calendar, and they gather all the games from every weekend that is running in the general vicinity, and there's like 6 or 7 games every open weekend from every genre that you can possibly think of. There's like westerns and sci-fi, high fantasy, pretty much anything that you can possibly think of. So it's a really competitive community up here. But a lot of people have really gotten comfortable with running those like parlor style hotel game LARPs that run for like smaller communities. And so it really becomes this intimate setting where you have players come to games where there's not the traditional American boffer style LARP that you would be used to coming from Nero or coming from one of the older games that ran. It's a really cool culture. Like it's really great. And a lot of the community up here really aids each other. So we go out on a tangent out of our way to make sure that we're involved in other games, like whether we're going to NPC other games or if we can help them promote it all. It's a really tight-knit community up here.
Oh, that's awesome. You know, down here, things have been a little bit different. I mean, I think most of us try to get along, but there's been one or two that have been a little contentious.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll happen that much. But so what do you like about LARPing? You know, what was it? I mean, you know, being outside and some combat, but like, was there something specific out, you know, that really kind of drew you to it?
I'd have to say, so I'm a puzzle mind. Like I love puzzles. And the very first event that I went to, I got a cipher. And the gentleman who gave me the cipher was so proud of himself because he was like, oh, this one's going to be really hard. And I walked in and I think I solved it within like 30 minutes. And I was like, it's just, I love puzzles. And it was the different ways that you can use your mind in a game, right? There's kind of something for everybody. If you're not into combat, there's usually some kind of lore that you can delve into, or if you're not into role play, you can go out and fight all day and really just create a character that aids in that. What I kind of personally love about LARPing is the ability to change that up, right? Like one weekend I might be really invested in just fighting and not really care that much about the plot that's going on. Or I want to be social, like I want to be a social creature all weekend. So all I do is go around and role play. It's really the versatility of what you can do at a game that I really like. Okay,
cool. So do you actually play more than one game up there?
I play a lot of games. So I play Madrigal, which has just celebrated their 20th anniversary 2 years ago. I play Lion, which has been around for a really long time as well. So Madrigal is a high fantasy game. Lion is like a post-modern, like apocalypse, but magic comes out afterwards game. Okay. I play Fealty, which is one of the games that I'm a marketing director of a production company called Living Fictions Entertainment, and we run 3 games, and Fealty is one of the games that we run, and that's a high fantasy game where everybody walks into the game as either nobility or knight, serving a king who runs it all. So that's a lot of fun too. That game is hard mode.
Yeah. That sounds really interesting. I'm assuming there's a lot of political intrigue and stuff like that.
There is a lot of political intrigue. I think the first game that we played, they split everybody's factions up, like the knights and the nobles and the mercenaries, and they were like, here's this huge bomb that's going to be dropped, and you all have to figure it out. Okay, good luck, goodbye.
Awesome. Mm-hmm. Now, in that particular game, is that a little bit more of the parlor type of game, or is there still like regular, what we would call
that one is like your American boffer LARP. Okay. It's really high stats. There's a lot of combat. They use really incredible mechanics. I can't speak highly enough of the staff that works on Fealty, because they have this wide array of LARPing experience. It's people who have been LARPing for like 5 years and people who have been LARPing for like 25 years. And there's really a staff member for every type of thing that you could want at a LARP. There's the creepy horror plot rating guy, and there's the guy who works on nobles, and then there's the game owner's partner runs witches, and one of her spell potions to have her witches do is make mozzarella cheese. Like, there's just something random for everybody.
Awesome. That's neat. So I guess, being able to have a large variety of genres to play from, is there a particular genre that you like better than others?
I feel like I'm nostalgic. It's hard to say. Like, I've been LARPing for 6 years. It's such a long time. I started with high fantasy, and I've always been a really big fantasy literature fan. So I have a soft spot for fantasy, and I always think it's cool to see what people come up with, because there's so many like gimmicks and things that have already been done. So watching people take that genre and run with it and turning it into something of their own is really, really fun to watch.
Awesome. Very cool. So kind of talking about, watching people and them getting involved, like, how you go about creating a character, like when you decide to play a character in one of these games, what's a little bit more of the process that you go through? And also, does it depend on the type of game you're playing?
It does depend on the type of game I'm playing, and I try to think of who I'm playing with. Like, if I'm going into a game with a team, I'll talk to them. I'll usually let everybody else figure out what they're playing first, and I'll be like, okay, what's missing out of this dynamic as far as a skill set goes. But that's just, I don't recommend that for everybody. Your fun should be the most important. Play whatever you're going to have fun with. That's just something that I do, because I've played so many random, like I've played healers. The only thing I haven't played is a fighter.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. But so from there, once I figure out kind of what build style I'm going to play, I'll read through the entire rule book and I'll find something that speaks to me. I'll be like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to play like Lawful Evil this game, or I'm going to play a super good guy. I'll find something that fits that niche and I'll kind of run with it and come up with a gimmick and then just create a whole character off of that.
Very cool. Kind of speaking of which, do you get into like alignments, like and maybe not necessarily like the standard typical D&D sort of thing, but do you tend to play more like good guys or bad guys, or mainly just like kind of agnostic to some of the politics and just kind of do your own thing? Or what are some of the things that you like?
So the very first character I ever played, which is who you met, was Sunshine, was as lawful good as they come. And I got beat up a lot for that. There's a lot of people who will like go around trying to do shady stuff, or they'll be like in the gray area of the law. And if you're playing a lawful good guy, you get ostracized a lot from that plot because they don't want to do anything bad in front of you. And then they're always trying to push, like players sometimes try to push your morals. They're like, hey, you should do this thing. You should do this thing. And I don't think I'll ever play another lawful good guy. It was really fun. I learned a lot. You have to be really on your game, but something I tend to play is within the chaotics. So I like not being held down to a strict set of rules, because it's really hard to play, especially when you get really invested in a plot. So for some people, it gives you that streamline of, here's a thing I know I'm never going to cross, and here it gives my character depth. But for me, I'm like, I really like the idea of being able to kind of roll with the punches, and playing characters in the chaotic alignments allowed me to do that.
That's cool. So I understand what you're talking about. I see that a lot of people play opportunistic, where, like, you know, it's very much like, okay, no one's around, sure, I'll do this or do that. Versus, I know a lot of people that play very fanatic, like it's lawful good, that sort of thing, and that's tough for me. I think you're right. I like kind of more the chaotic myself, but you know, do you feel like that, you know, runs into other issues with, you know, not being able to play with other people that you might want to play with, or do you ever like run into problems with that if everyone's not on the same page?
So I think that any conflict in game really takes careful consideration on how to dismantle it. So if you have, I'll say PvP, for not like the active PvP, like not attacking another person, but the PvP is in your character and another person's character has very different views on something, and it becomes like this really intense role play scene. Something that I have found that's really common in the New England area right now is there's check-in systems written into the rules. So people have like hand motions to, like, if you're in an intense role play scene, to be able to like put a thumbs up to be like, hey, I'm okay. Hey, I'm teetering on the edge of this not being okay. Hey, this is a little bit too intense for me to handle right now. And that has been really cool. It's been really helpful with those like awkward, sometimes overly intense situations.
Okay. I definitely understand that. So do you like, you know, I've played one or two characters and they've had some weird quirks. Do you ever get into like adding quirks into like your characters, or actually you mentioned, you know, doing plot, like, you know, do you have NPCs that have weird quirks or just things that kind of hamstring yourself a little bit, just to add a little bit more complexity and challenge to the character and make them give them a little bit more depth?
Yeah, so I definitely do. Something that I'm really obsessed with in my games is making sure that my NPCs look really cool. Like, it's somebody that you really want to approach. And like, I'll lean into that. Like, I'll wear a fake contact with a scar over my eye, or I'll have a cane or something like that, like something to lean into to really make that character stand apart from just the average person. Like, I can wear wigs all day long, or I can really make the attempt to change the way my face looks to really bring out a different character. So it's not just me coming out every single time.
Okay. I mean, that definitely makes sense. I also, you know, I get that probably helps to differentiate yourself and kind of put yourself really into that persona for that particular character by, you know, dressing differently or the makeup or things like that. So what about like backstory? How do you come up with backstory for a character? Like what inspires you?
What inspires me for a backstory? Let me think about what my backstory for the game I'm playing most recently, Fealty, is I am a priest of the degenerate gods, and I'm playing with 3 friends of mine who are family members, and we decided that we were 2 sets of twins. So kind of it was get together, talk about like the different things that we could do, and just let the boulder roll downhill. I will always try to lean into the themes that the writer of those worlds want. So when I read this God section, and they're called the Priests of the Twins, and it was very much so live life to the most pleasure that you possibly can. I was like, okay, great. I'm going to be a degenerate. Like, this is the way it's written, and I'm going to do my best to create a character that aligns with what that staffing team is trying to put out.
I mean, and that's great. When you first go to a new game, especially because it seems like you encounter so many, do you, like, I've heard other people that I've had on the show basically say that they like to, or they suggest for new people at least to go out Monster or that sort of thing to kind of get familiar with not only kind of the stats, but the feel of the game in terms of, is it a very chaotic game, is it a very lawful game, or at least, strict in terms of some of the laws, rules, and things like that. Is that one of the things that you kind of look at as you get involved in, because you're in so many numerous games? Us here, people tend to stick to one game, maybe two, but that's pretty much what I see here in Atlanta.
So when I'm going to a new game, a lot of the time I'm promoting our games. So I'll go and NPC a bunch of random games around to help out the community, to really show them that they have our support and that we'll try to send them support whenever they need it. That's a lot of the time I have found games that I want to go play by randomly NPCing a game and being like, wow, I really love the culture here. Like, I really love the player base. I really love like what the game is running by going to help. I totally suggest that to new players. If you aren't really sure about a game and you really want to try it, just go out and NPC or Monster, as you guys call it, for the first event. Some games, like, so our game, for example, Coventry, doesn't allow you to NPC and then PC unless you have a strict conversation about it to begin with, because we don't want anything to get spoiled from you being behind the scenes. But if you have a conversation with us prior, being like, hey, I'm just looking to NPC this event so I can get my feet wet and see what the world looks like, then we'll make the experience able for you to be able to go PC afterwards, and then also kind of see how our system runs and how everything works.
Okay, very cool. So what are, who is like one of your favorite characters that you played?
Ooh.
What made them special?
My favorite character that I played. So in Lion, I played a surgeon who, when they call it the change, so when like technology died, magic kind of rose into the world. So having been like a studious person who had been a surgeon for their entire life, when technology died, they had to find something else to do, and they kind of lost all of their hope for everything they've ever done before, and then found healing magic. And she then lost her mind and traveled the world and became like a crazy Russian woods witch. Like,
okay, interesting.
So I would show up to games with like old wives' tales that I researched, and I'd have props that I would hand out to people for intermittent role play when there was downtime. I taught myself how to read runes, and I'd charge people like a copper to read their fortune, which was really fun because I got to learn a ton about the town. I got to learn about like every character's backstory and kind of like where they were coming from. And then I also got to do like little things to just really bring my character to life. It was a blast. So her name was Ksenia, and she was a crazy person.
Awesome. Very cool. So, was there like one or, a specific encounter that just like stands out to you from playing her that like just, really made your day, or just was just like, something that, people would remember and be a part of, that was just something really fun memory?
We had a plot line that we were running, that we were doing, that we were looking into a basilisk that was around, and the plot staff was so cool. They made like all of these shields that like broke apart, that were made out of they had like reflective tape on them, so when you put them together they ended up being like a reflective shield. So they let us run with it too. Our entire team ended up making mirror shields of our own, like mirror bucklers, that we ended up bringing to like the final fight. And it was like an 1.5 hour long fight against this basilisk. And it's crazy how great this game did with this fight, because somebody ended up getting really injured in the middle of this fight that was simultaneously going on with another huge fight in town. So we stopped game, an ambulance came in, picked up the person who got injured, took them off, and then the fight had to pick back up, and it didn't lose any momentum at all. It was still like one of the best fights I've ever been in.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, hopefully that person was okay and wasn't a big
deal.
They
were totally fine. Yeah, it was not a big deal, but we were all like, what's going on at the time?
Yeah, no, I definitely understand. I completely understand. Unfortunately, sometimes things happen when you get involved with things like this. But as for your time on like plot or what in our games we call it like our entertainment committee, what type of encounters did you like to run for people, or like what type of stuff did you, what was interesting for you?
So I love making puzzles. So when we were writing our original rule book, we made an ancestry of people that like always had a cipher on them. So I hand created the cipher. So we can just hand out those ciphers and they'll have the key to it at any given time. I make escape rooms for people. It's weirdly like something I get known for up here is like the person who makes escape rooms for games, because I do it like once or twice for every game that I've been on staff for. I love political intrigue. I'd say that my nation that I'm running in Coventry is almost solely political intrigue. Puzzles and politics. I also run combat too. It's not my favorite thing.
Tertiary. That makes sense. I mean, especially if you like puzzles, the politics and political intrigue is just a whole nother subset of that. Or just a whole nother part. So that makes sense. Let me ask you a little bit more kind of about you. In some of the games that I've played, some people have what we call LARP dreams. Do you ever have like dreams about the LARPs that you played, or something going on, or maybe like an encounter that you might have been through, or that you might be anticipating coming up?
I always get LARP dreams like right before I'm gonna go play a game. I go to sleep and like I know that I'm going away for the weekend. It's like within the week before, and I'll like start dreaming about the plot that's happening. And like create scenarios where I'm trying to figure out the plot that's happening before we even get there. I'm like, why am I doing this?
Nice. And it's a lot of fun. Actually, currently, are you running plot, or are you playing a character, or are you kind of playing characters in certain games, running plot in other games, or?
So I'm on staff for Coventry. We aired right before the pandemic hit. We got 2 games under our belt and then had to push all of our games out. So we ended up just booking our 3rd game. Pre-registration for it opened this week, and we're running the weekend of April 1st as our 3rd game back. I am not currently staffing any other games, but I have staffed Nero, Ravenholt. That was fun. I learned a lot. Staffing Nero. Nero requires a certain mindset to be able to appease to the players who have been playing for like 20 years as well as the new players. So there's this like delicate dance that you have to do to be able to make everybody feel included, as well as like pushing a narrative with so many years of lore behind it that not everybody might know.
Right. No, that's definitely something tough to manage. And then, of course, when you're running encounters, you might have people that are super high level, and then newer players that are significantly less. And how do you scale certain things?
I have to say that running a game from scratch, like being part of the world building experience, and then having everyone's kind of start at the same level has been really eye-opening. It's so much different than running like a legacy game, because if you're newer and you're running a legacy game, you have to catch up on a ton of lore before you can even write anything, or you can choose not to touch that at all and just do fun side plots, which are awesome, but you're not appeasing the players who've been playing for a really long time. So it's just really different. It's great though. I love it. Like building a world from scratch is awesome. Watching people get really excited about the stuff that you wrote as opposed to taking on someone else's game is one of the most gratifying feelings in the entire world.
I understand. I've done both. I played in pre-existing worlds as well. Run plot in pre-existing worlds as well as created our own, and definitely understand it's a lot of fun to be able to put that out there and then watch people react to it. Is there anything that you kind of saw that you weren't expecting how people reacted to in the game that you guys have created? Like, did people take things in a certain way that you just didn't even think about? Like as a whole, as a plot or staff, I guess is the term you guys use.
Yeah, it's funny I think that this is any game that you run, right? Like you'll have this plot and you'll have it in your head and you'll think, I have the next 3 years of major talking points set out. And then the first time you encounter PCs and they start conspiracy theorizing, everything goes out the window. It's not, nothing you write is going to stay the same. And I'm very much of the mindset of you should be writing for your player's reaction, right? Like if I put something out and my players react a certain way, then I want to give them the agency to keep running with the plot line the way that they think it should be run. So you hear some crazy things. I run 2 religions in Coventry, and I'll put something out and mages in Coventry are not allowed to, or priests are not allowed to practice magic. They have their own set of magic, but there's this something that exists.
This is divination sort of thing.
That there's no crossover between the two. Okay. And that's not to say that mages can't get involved in religious stuff and religious people can't get involved in magic stuff. There's just, you cannot have both divine and arcane magic. There is something in the world that
prevents it,
stops that from happening. And the conspiracy theories that I've heard from players, and we've only run 2 games, so they're like, well, it has to be because of this or this, and this. And it's my favorite thing, watching how their minds tick. It's just so good.
Awesome. Well, yeah, no, I mean, that sounds great. It's always fun to kind of see how players took something versus kind of how you intended for it to go. It's definitely not always the same thing. But speaking of which, has there ever been a time in the LARP where you had super emotional about something that was going on, or maybe a particular person or PC, NPC, things like that?
I got knighted down in Dragon Isles on a whim. The king was present in Nero. So this is Nero Dragon Isles. You were there, but for those who were not there, Dragon Isles was this offshoot, 2-year arc that they ran outside of Nero, and everybody traveled from all over the place down to Atlanta to come play. There were people from Texas that came to travel. There were people from New England that came to travel. Pennsylvania came to travel.
It was fun.
It was so much fun. It was definitely one of my favorite games that I've played to date. But the king was present, and plot was announcing a bunch of random people to the king to get elevated in one way or another. And they dismissed everybody from court, and I got tapped on the shoulder and told to take a knee. And I was not expecting it in any way, shape, or form. I was crying like a 2-year-old. It was intense, because when you work hard for something in a game and you finally get it, it's super rewarding. Right.
No, I definitely understand. But it's interesting. I've talked to different people, and they've talked about other things that have been emotional. This is obviously a good one. Some of the other ones were certain NPCs passing on or things like that. But and that's why we all have our own experiences, and that's what we're here to talk about a little bit more. So one of the things that I have from my years of LARPing is I have a little collection of just tokens or trinkets that I've gotten from playing that young people put out as little fizzer ups. Do you have anything like that, is there anything that mean something to you kind of in your heart, or maybe like when you got knighted or something to that effect?
I have a whole jewelry box filled with like any kind of trinket that I've ever gotten. I have my knight's chain. I've got some games up here require you after like a year to put the magic item that you've gotten back into play. But I got this oh my goodness. Greaves, not Greaves,
Yeah,
but
Greaves.
yeah. That was a sewing kit as a magic item once. It was the coolest thing. I ended up handing it off to somebody who was a seamstress, but like some of the things that you get are so cool. Like, but yeah, I have a whole jewelry box. I have a banner from Dragon Isles hanging in my house. It's the scarab.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yep.
Very cool. So you definitely have some things that are kind of close to the heart. Awesome. And so it sounds like you've played a couple of different types of LARPs. Do you prefer like parlor LARPs over light touch? Or I believe that's at least what we call it down here. I know that obviously there's a couple of different terms that we've been using that trying to kind of get on the same page. But do you favor one type over another?
I enjoy what you guys would call lightest touch. I've been to games that do headshots. It's not really my thing. Like I really enjoy like a complex magic system because I usually play casters of some sort. And when I am fighting, I don't like being hit in the head.
Sure, that makes sense. Okay, so all right, that's good. So is there anything particularly crazy that you might have done while you were, at a LARP that you're willing to admit?
Anything crazy?
So let me give you an example. There's one time I was wearing about 30 pounds of chainmail, and for some reason decided to go in a robot into the middle of the lake, and it probably wasn't the smartest idea. So that's kind of one of them. I've heard other people just, whether it's as their character, maybe they ran to like a bunch of things that they didn't think they'd survive and they did, or just maybe like, I've also heard of people like almost like walking and falling into like places at a site because they just weren't super familiar with it. Anything particularly crazy that you might have done as, or even just even as a PC or NPC that
so we ran this plot line in Nero Ravenholt where there was a like subsector realm that we had to bring a couple of 10 PCs to, and we ran this huge maze through the woods in the pitch darkness with like glow stick bracelets on the yarn, so people had to go through this yarn maze, hold on to the ropes, and something was chasing them, and if that thing caught them, then they became one of the chasing things and went after their friends. And their whole objective was to go through this maze and open up lockpick boxes that had code phrases in them, and there was 6 of them, and you had to read the entire code phrase to end the encounter. So I was playing this spirit character that would give them they could trade these cookies. They had cookies on them that they could give to me, and I could give them a hint on how to open a box or bypass the box for them if they did this. But on the way to this encounter, I had to sit out in the dark in a mask, like a full mask, in the pitch darkness for probably an hour, waiting for the hook to come to find me and summon me. And I could not see at all. I couldn't see all the way until we got to the maze when I saw the lights. Was the first time I could see again. I was not able to do anything for 2 hours and just hung out in the dark. And it was cold, but.
And you didn't have anybody with you at all?
Nope, I was just by myself.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I think that'll count. So let me ask you this. I know you, in the grand scheme of things, you've been doing this, you said, for about 6 years now. Do you foresee, do you think this is something that you might just do for a little while longer? Do you think it's like crazy to think of maybe another 10 years from now, or even more than that? Like, do you foresee yourself as this like being a major part of your life for a while?
I definitely see it being a major part of my life. Some of my best friends that I've met, the people I hang out with all the time, all come from LARPing. I didn't have a community at all when I moved to New England, and I met all of my friends from LARPing. So I don't think that I will always continue to LARP at the level that I do. It gets a little hectic up here playing a bunch of games, and then also NPCing and also running games. Like it gets the spring and the fall, you have no free weekends.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I'm used to playing, at the height, we played like 1 weekend a month. But it sounds like you're out there every weekend or 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 weeks out of a month.
I'm going to share my calendar with you. So March 18th, I'm LARPing that weekend. April 1st, April 15th, April 22nd, I'm LARPing. I get a weekend break. I'm LARPing the next weekend after that. I'm running a game the next weekend after that. I get a break. I'm playing the next weekend after that. And then I'm going to a bachelor party after that.
Wow. That's a lot of LARPing.
It's a lot of LARPing.
Wow. Well, that's cool. I mean, it's neat that you have the opportunity to be able to play in that many games and that sort of thing. Do you travel very far to get from game to game up in New England?
So most of the games that run up here are within like a 2.5 hour radius, right? Yes. So from where I live to get to where Nero Karoth used to play is about 3 hours because that's closer to New York. But Fealty runs 45 minutes from my house. Coventry runs an hour and a half away from my house. But I have traveled like all over the place to LARP. I've traveled to Ohio. I've traveled to Pennsylvania. I've gone down to Georgia. Drakenfest is coming up, the American Drakenfest, which I'm so excited for. I feel like, and those who are listening in Georgia, you should definitely check out Drakenfest US. It's a 5-day LARP. It's running from Wednesday till Sunday. It originated in Germany, and it's this truly immersive, people build like gardens and tent sites to really settle down for 5 days. And it's got some of like the best LARPing minds I've seen behind it. So like I'm really excited for that. And that's in Jersey.
Yeah, I think I have a mutual friend that was bringing this up to me. I think it's in like June or July. Mm-hmm. And someplace in New Jersey. Like I gotta be, here in Atlanta, we all pretty much use the same sites.
Yeah.
So, it's, you can go to one site one weekend and it'll be one of the random games playing there typically. But so traveling quite like that is interesting. We, there's still some stuff in South Carolina and North Carolina that people do. But anyway, yeah, I was just curious because again, a lot of people that we talk to are here in Atlanta and have a different way and look at things, and which is why I'm glad that we were able to bring some people on from different places, so you have a better perspective. And as we've never really got into the whole European side with the Drakenfest, so it does sound really interesting for those that aren't familiar with it. I mean, it sounds like they're talking about one of these like huge thousands of people type of thing.
Yeah, I don't think that thousands of people will show up, but I think that it'll be a lot. And there's truly a different style of how you game. Like they're so focused on immersion, from like the costumes to like the props that go out or tents that are set up for the different guilds. And so much of the plot is also player driven because they care so much about player agency that it's really a completely different style than we're used to.
Awesome. Very cool. So kind of to move on to some other stuff, if you don't mind, kind of ask me 1 or 2 questions about you. So for example, like, have you found that there are certain skills that you've learned from a LARP that you've been able to apply maybe into your business or professional career, or that that you've just been able to use in different places?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say that there's a certain level of leadership that I have amassed in LARPing, of being able to control how situations, like mitigate conflict in situations, and really aid people in having fun and like furthering their wants. I was a knight in Nero, and I had a court under me. And we always sat down and we were like, what are your personal goals? Like, what do you want to do for fun? And you make sure that the people around you are doing what they want for fun. So definitely leadership. I have always gone really hard marketing the games that I am playing in online. So that's definitely been something that I've used in my professional career, is being able to take an event and really hype it up and get people excited about it. That's the whole reason I am an owner of LFE, is because I was able to pull a game that was dying up to like 60 players. And then we kind of created our Coventry PC group from scratch, and that was just running around from game to game to game, NPCing and spreading the word, and then also using social media to compensate it. And we built an 80-person player base.
Wow. So
Yeah.
actually, that's another question I have is, up there in the Northeast, or in New England, I guess. Yeah, I'm trying to use terms you're using. How big are some of the games? Is 80 person, is that like the average size LARP? Is that a bigger or smaller LARP, or kind of where does that kind of range?
I'd say the average size LARP is anywhere between 40 to 50 people. I'd say the more, I don't want to use the amount of people attending as a factor of success. I want to be really clear about that when I say this, because there are parlor games that are absolutely wonderful games that are super successful by doing their own thing, and it's what people like. But as an easy metric, games that have over 60 plus players are just really busy, well-trafficked games that tend to be really successful. And there's a couple of those. There's Madrigal, which had, I think the last time I checked, it was like 120, 140 people. I think they started their third branch of their campaign with like 200 people playing.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
And there's enough sites to accommodate that number of people?
Yeah, there's a ton of different sites. So we use a lot of Boy Scout sites. We use YMCA sites. There's a lot of burn camp sites as well. Like, there's just plenty of room all over the place. There's actually like a big shift in where everyone's playing right now. So one of our made to be a LARP camp sites closed down over the pandemic. So it's been like this mad dash to try to replace those games in different places. And like with the pandemic, nobody knew if they were running or not, which is totally fair. But it's just been this real flux of who's using what camp and where, because there's so many games.
Good, games is good. So, and let me ask you another thing, just because we had a guy that would fly down he lived in New York. He'd fly down to Atlanta. Actually, not just him, but he brought his friend and his wife. They'd fly down to Atlanta. They would play the LARP that I was playing with at the time. This is 10 plus years ago. And they said that the price was cheaper to do that and, stay the extra night and fly back up. I mean, how expensive are some of the games up there?
So our games range from $80 to, I think I've seen up to 110. But you're thinking you're getting 3 meals a day. It's an experience that you're buying. It's cheaper. It is cheaper for me to go pay for a LARP event for a weekend than it is for me to go out and do things on a weekend. Like my bar and dinner tab with my boyfriend would be $100. You know what I mean? Like, the price is subjective. Like, and you hear this argument a lot from people of like, oh my God, it's too expensive. You're pricing people out. So you always have the opportunity to come play for free by NPCing or monstering if you want to get your feet wet. I feel like it's only going to go up in price. Like, we can't sustain. Games need to be able to buy props to sustain. They pay for insurance. Sites are getting more expensive. Like, just like your rents are going up, like site rentals are also going up. So I think you're going to see a lot of games really break that $100 price. But yeah, my experience was down south was a lot cheaper. You see a lot of games now up here too starting to not run on Sundays. So they're just running really, really late on Friday night and really, really late on Saturday. And then Sundays, it'll just be role-playing encounters or just like one field battle.
Right. And the reason why I asked is because the impression I got from this friend of ours was more like he was paying like $200 or $300 per person. Like, you know, down here, I mean, when I first started playing, it was like $25. I mean, we're talking about like mid 90s. You know, you might not have even been born, but you know, it's kind of gotten to that $65, $70 area, but that actually typically doesn't include food. I guess we just lost Amanda. So hi guys. Let's give her just a moment or two to see if she'll join us. In fact, I guess while we have it, oh, here she goes.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. But I'm glad you got back on quickly. But go ahead.
So yeah, the price, I've never seen a game that's $200 or $300. I know of like really niche parlor games that you have to travel to, that are like at a hotel and it's the full experience at the hotel, can be upwards to that expensive. I know a lot of European LARPs when you go travel, like the Witcher game, and the Harry Potter game and things like that. Those tend to be really, really expensive. I was talking to some friends about Drakenfest, because Drakenfest is higher on the price point. I think it's like $250, but it's a 5-day game, right? So if you break it down. Yeah, it's 2 events, right? And that's I just feel like you're going to be seeing more and more of the prices raise.
No, I definitely agree. And it's you know, I guess what it is, it's going to happen. It's kind of got to happen. But I wasn't trying to get lost in the weeds with you about.
Oh no, it's okay.
I was just curious because again, like for him to say that, for him to fly down and do all this stuff, I was like, wow, it must be super, super expensive. But I guess maybe it was just the game he was playing or something. Anyway, you know, that's fine. Let me ask you this. You know, how do you see LARPs changing like in the next 5 years? Like, do you think that there's going to be some new big event that's going to take LARPing to a different level?
I keep going back to Drakenfest. I think being able to hold a successful 5-day event that has a good turnout to it is really going to change the game. Because Nero used to do them. They used to do 5-day events or used to do 9-day events. I think by having these kind of like festival style one-shot LARPs where you can come and reprise your character, or you can like reprise a character that you loved, that you don't have to continuously travel for. I think their goal is to revolutionize what LARPing looks like in the States. And I really hope they succeed, because it would be really cool to do like an offshoot 5-day game where you come up with like a really rules light rule book and let people just play characters that they had loved that they were no longer allowed, like that they can no longer play anymore because the game isn't open, or having really that like vacation, right? Like when you go LARPing for a weekend, you get off work sometimes on Friday at like 5 o'clock, and then you have to get ready, and then you drive the site, and then you're tired by like 1 a.m. So you're really only playing like Saturday. Like Saturday is the crux of your playtime, but really opening up that space for a 5-day game where people can take a vacation and they can go be around like-minded people, I think will be really integral in how we change the way we're viewing LARPing in the United States. Oh no, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, that was me. I muted myself. I didn't realize that. I was just having a little drink. But that definitely makes sense. That eventually some of the European stuff is kind of coming over. So how do you think? I mean, you've been doing social media, and you've been reaching out, and it seems like you're very, very active in the community and trying to kind of bring new people in. Is there anything else that you think people could do more to get more people into LARPing, or at least trying it out?
So something that we've really seen over the course of, I don't know if it's the same in Georgia, but it really has been in New England. LARPing for the longest has consisted of safe places for people to either explore their identity or explore, like, just be safe places. And there's a real push up here to not tolerate bullshit anymore, like not allowing it to be any kind of toxic environment. And it's been really refreshing for a lot of different people, because they really get to go game in peace and don't have to worry about being bullied or being like kicked out of plots or having plots dominated. Like, there's a really big push for that. And I think that's great. And I think kind of the next step in being able to market and produce games is creating, really expanding that safe place to demographics and pieces of this world. Yeah, no missing stairs. That is already not part of the LARPing community. So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
So you were able to see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No worries. Sorry, I'm still kind of getting used to the software that I'm using.
That's okay.
Like, I saw it. I didn't know that you were able to see it, but I guess now, so here we go. Just so that other people can see it. Obviously, this is coming from a friend, I'm assuming, but through YouTube versus we're also live on Facebook and Twitch at the same time. So now they can see it. So what advice would you give to new LARPers?
Sorry?
What advice would you give to new LARPers?
Go in with no expectation, because if you have expectations walking in, you can get let down by what you think it's going to be, or what you are like planning. And it might be every game is different, right? So what I did when I first started LARPing is I reached out to a ton of people in the community before my first game. It was like, hey, this is the character I'm planning on playing. What should I expect? What should I pack? What does a typical weekend look like? So I took all of that knowledge and I kept what I should pack. Stacked in my head. And then I showed up and I was like, I'm just going to have fun. I'm going to roll with the punches. I'm going to try to get out of my comfort zone. And walking into any kind of new game can make you feel intimidated. But really, at the end of the day, everyone's there to have fun. So the more you buy in, the more fun you're going to have.
Definitely. I think that a lot of LARPs want new people. So I think if you just kind of be a little bit open and, talk to people, that most people will react to you and will want to chat with you. I want to bring LARP newcomers to NBC Coventry. What do I tell them?
The first thing that you tell them is we absolutely cherish new players. They're our favorite things in the entire world, and we treat them like gold. You cannot run a sustainable game if you are not making new players have the time of their life the first time they show up. And that's on us.
It's the lifeblood of new players.
Yeah. And, you find that in a lot of the communities now, that a lot of the PCs will also bend over backwards to make sure that the new players are having a good time. I think that's one of the biggest reasons I stuck around. Because Nero, we talked about how there's such a huge level disparity of when you first walk into a game and then people who have been playing for 25 years, but everyone bent over backwards to make sure that I had fun and that I knew what was going on and I was involved in plot. And it was really the community that kept me there.
Awesome. So kind of the same question, but now kind of bringing into just the collection of people that I've spoken to so far has mostly been male. We did actually have another woman on before. Is there anything you would tell to new women or even young women that were getting involved? Like, for example, I have a 17-year-old daughter. She cannot wait to go LARP. She'll be turning 18 here shortly, and she's really looking forward to it. And we've been talking about it for years. But is there anything that you would give advice to, especially a female that's coming out to a new LARP, on how to just, be okay and keep I'm not saying anything would happen, but just to keep it up and up.
Well, it can be. I have to assess my words here. It can be trying being a female in the LARPing community, right? Because it's a primarily male-dominated, I'll call it sport for lack of.
Sure.
So my best advice to women who are coming to play is take no shit. If something is bothering you, make sure you either place down firm boundaries or talk to management, because your safety and your existence at the game is important, and everybody should be taking that into consideration when you're playing. For the longest time, you would see kind of this like internalized misogyny of women are only healers, right? That's not the world we play in anymore. It's not a boys club. It's not like that. It's a safe space for you. You can play whatever you want to play. And there are some really, really strong, powerful, awesome women in these games that will be great lifelong friends. So that's what I would say about being a woman in LARP.
Okay, cool. So, I appreciate you coming on and kind of talking with us and telling us a little bit more about, some of the games that you guys have been involved in, a little bit more about, definitely, how things are done up in New England versus kind of down here in the South, which is, it sounds in general very similar, with just minor differences. I don't really think anything, and you've been down here, so, I'm not sure if you really noticed anything that much different than being up there. Maybe you have.
I have found that the people in the South are the most welcoming people I've ever met. Like, I loved playing down South. Everybody was just tremendous. Like, I loved it so much.
Awesome. Well, good. I'm glad you had that experience. That definitely makes me happy about that. I myself am actually from up north, but
I myself am from down South, and I moved up north.
Touche. Very cool. So let me do this. Let me just give you, a little bit of time to talk about any of the things that you guys are doing, anything you want to kind of put out there for people to know about. Obviously, you talked about a bunch of different games, a couple of websites. Feel free to kind of, take a couple of minutes and just let people know where they can, find out more about what you guys are doing and potentially get involved. So I'll just kind of shut up for a second.
Yeah. All right. So I am the marketing director of a production company called Living Fictions Entertainment. We put on 3 separate games, one of which is Coventry, which I am on staff on, which is a high fantasy game. It's got crazy in-depth cosmology and lore forever. It's been a blast to run. We're running our 3rd game April 1st. We also produced 2 other games called Fealty, which is another high fantasy game. And then Invictus, which is the holy matrimony of sci-fi and high fantasy in a game. So yeah, we are really working on building new communities for LARP. We really believe in not taking any shit from people. We don't believe in broken stairs, and we get rid of them instantly. We run out of the accelerant system that was created by Rob Ciccolini for Madrigal was the original game that ran for it, but it's a really easy system to learn. It's really intuitive, and yeah, so that's a little bit about our production company and what we do. And we also are picking up games all the time, like one-shot games to run for charity, or games that are just one-shot ideas as well. So we're always in the business of learning about new games and willing to produce them.
Cool. Is there a place where people can find you online, whether it's maybe through Facebook or a website, or maybe if we get you onto LFG Nexus? Sorry, how to put that?
Yeah, I can definitely give you my like handles, like my Instagram and my Facebook handles, and then as well as Living Fictions and Coventry's Facebooks as well to post on the site.
Sounds good. We can definitely work something out with that. And we could also put it here in the video, so if people do see the video, it'll be in the notes, so people can reach out to you guys and get more involved. Hopefully, maybe bring a couple of new players or that sort of thing. Amanda, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us and kind of giving us a little bit of a different perspective. It's been really helpful. To kind of learn a little bit more about kind of how people, do things a little bit, somewhere else. Just to kind of, if you don't mind hanging out for just a second, we are going to have another gentleman by the name of Charles Bailey next week. And then that's kind of who we're going to have on next week for the storytellers. And we hope everybody had a good time. If you guys are not familiar, this is again comes from LFG Nexus. It's a social media platform built for gamers. One of the things that we do that's kind of relevant is that we do have a place where you can find different events in your local areas. So if you guys have these different LARPs, we can actually put different events on our calendar. Our goal is basically to be a next level in social media, specifically for gaming and pop culture. And so that's a little bit more about LFG Nexus. Guys, thank you for coming on. We had some new names in the chat, which is cool. Again, all we want to do here is kind of help more people, learn more about LARPing. To be honest, like 85 to 90% of my friends I met through LARPing. And like, these are like 20 plus year old friends that like we could pick up a conversation from years and years and years ago. And so that's why I want to help more people get into LARPing and build these types of relationships that I've been fortunate to have. And so that's kind of a little bit more about us. But ladies and gentlemen, good night. Thank you. And take care. We'll see you next week.